Welcome to the Thrill of Driving podcast. Now, actually, we should change this name of the podcast to the Evo India podcast because today we are going to be talking about Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield have just launched the Hunter 350. Adil, he was there in Bangkok at the launch, as were tons of journalists from India. All of them are raving about the motorcycle. One of the sweetest Royal Enfield motorcycles out here, Adil.
It's the lightest Royal Enfield in decades.
So it's the lightest Royal Enfield in decades. We'll come and talk about
the bike Royal Enfield with the smallest wheels in decades as well.
lightest and smallest wheels. So we'll talk about the Hunter 350 towards the end of this podcast. This podcast is talking about the journey of Royal Enfield. And that also is a good point and good time to introduce Adil. Adil, I've written it down here. On the 26th of August, Adil will complete 45 years in Indian automotive journalism. 45 years. I remember reading about Adil when I was in short pants. I think the first issue of Car India, Car and Bike International, I bought it when I was 12 years old or something. I remember it was a green cover with the sumo on it. There was the contest
We were
also on
12
it.
years old when we were 45 years young.
Yeah. So I've been reading Adil's work for ages. I've been fortunate enough to start off in this industry under Adil's aegis and tutelage as a lot of journalists in India. That's Adil here. And we have Rishad Cooper on my right, for those of you watching this on YouTube. And also listening to Rishad, you'll be listening to a lot more of Rishad. Rishad is our new biking editor at Fastbacks, a consulting biking editor. And he's also been testing a lot of motorcycles. In fact, Rishad, you started off at Autocar in 2003. You started off at a garage in 1996. But you started off with Adil's brother in his garage when?
1994.
1994.
Feb 2nd, 1994.
So 29 years. 29 years. So Rishad's been in the business for 29 years. I've only been in the business for 22 years. So that's why today I'm only going to moderate. I started off at Overdrive under Adil, and my favorite bikes back then were Royal Enfield. So whenever I could, I would hog the Royal Enfields, and everybody was happy to give me the Royal Enfields. Not that there were too many Royal Enfields. There was one Royal Enfield launched maybe once a year, which broke down 10 times a year.
Once in 3 years with some color variations.
So, lot of history geography to this episode. This is actually a very, very interesting story. A story of an Indian manufacturer, obviously British origins, but an Indian manufacturer that is growing global like you would not believe. Royal Enfields now are all over the world. The earlier media ride was in California. The last media ride was in Bangkok. They are international. They are global by any standards. And in India, they are a mass market manufacturer. So Adil, we start off with you. History of Royal Enfield. Where do you want to start?
See, the thing is that Royal Enfield came into India after independence because the government was socialist. It said only three manufacturers in three different capacities, and so by virtue of being a British brand, so 350cc was the smallest which the British bands could go at that time.
Good days, 350 was the smallest.
No, but then they also had the Crusader, which was 250 and whatnot, but they were two-stroke, so we needed a four-stroke. The Bullet did the job for the army. More importantly, because the army needed India didn't have roads at that time, and as you will see progressively, that as India's evolution took place, where from utility to enthusiast, as the journey happened, many people found virtue in that utility and used that stuff to try to climb mountains. Leh being Royal Enfield stronghold. So the bike chugged along. It was little low on torque at the top end, but it had enough in the mid and low ends to just go along. So Royal Enfield in that sort of, it also what you call, I have a throwback to our Hindu mythology. Only by suffering will you attain nirvana. So the Royal Enfield made you go through that. You suffered, you overhauled the whole engine when you ran from Pune to the Himalayas and back. You climbed there, you were satisfied, and you came back and again you serviced the whole bike. So you were good.
Most people did not come back from the Himalayas. They came back, but they did not come back with the bike. The bike
yeah,
followed later on.
Yeah, so this is the penance they had to what you call put in. So when and in the face of the Indo-Jap onslaught from the mid 80s, Royal Enfield suddenly became a misnomer. People didn't know what to do. There was this one whole thing about the Dudwala bike, the army bike, and then suddenly you found someone made a start and started exporting bullets to Europe. And the most important buyers in Europe were women for the Royal Enfield.
And this was when? 30 years ago?
Women found the bike very, very easy and docile to ride. Here, it was completely different. It was supposed to be macho.
I know.
Yeah, so there
These
was-
European women who were buying the bike, there must have been something else.
So even today, the Hunter, when they spoke about, it is going to cater to a lot of women globally. And that is
So-
exactly. So what I'm saying is, let's not digress, let's keep to the bullet first. So they started doing that, and then they started learning what is lacking in the bike manifestly, because here we were too timid to tell the Royal Enfield guys, and by that time the company had made, at that time it was not Royal Enfield, it was Enfield India, which used to make Royal Enfield badge bullets. They went into consumer electronics, whatnot, and they went bankrupt virtually. And that is when the Lakshman family, which owned Royal Enfield then, decided to sell off to Eicher, Siddharth Lal's father. They were close family friends. So, and the plan was for that brand new factory they had made to make the Zundap range of two-stroke bikes, which also didn't take off, would be going on to make tractors for Eicher in down south. So Eicher would have a thing. And then that's all that sort of stuff, the changeover happened, tractors started being produced. But then what do you do with the bullet which was still there? That was given to Siddharth Lal as a test piece for him to cut his teeth. When he did that,
Year 1999?
around about the
Or
late
98,
98, 99, 2000. So, and he started grappling with the situation. It was good. A youngster, motorcycles, it was a very, very good combination. But he was all at sea because,
And they were struggling at that.
of course, they were absolutely,
the numbers were down.
No, they were absolutely rock bottom. So there was no question. Around this time, the Pulsar had come out 2002. And Pulsar set the pace for modern sporty bikes in India.
Other they were going to shut down, right?
Who?
Eicher, they were going to sell off Royal Enfield,
Yes,
right?
yes. But then.
Wasn't there like a board mandate given to Siddharth that you have till this time to do
It
something?
was. So, what had happened is, see, any company, it's not about what machinery you have, or it's about the human capital. The human capital there was very poor. They were still. I remember I used to go to the Tiruvuttur plant, and even the air smelled as if it was from the 1950s. They were so far behind, archaic. The resistance to change was massive. They thought that, oh, we are macho, we have to do it. It would, Rishad knows about spewing oil. It cannot be British if it doesn't leak. And they held on to these attributes and they never would want to let it go. And it had to vibrate. So because
It had to vibrate.
it had to vibrate, give you a massage.
I
after
want to
the
talk about the people who were buying the export motorcycles, but I won't go there.
No, don't do that. And even we had Royal Enfields in our fleet in Car and Bike International, then Overdrive. After every 2-3 weeks, you have to get down and tighten the engine bolts and whatnot. Every time it had to happen, otherwise the bike would be all over the place.
But that's the beauty of the brand.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not a firm believer in penance and whatnot. So what happened then was, one other gentleman joined the company. That was R.L. Ravichandran. He was formerly from TVS, then he went to Bajaj. He and Rajiv Bajaj made the Pulsar thing. They were really, RLR was the genius in the marketing. After he left Bajaj because of his health problems. He wanted to go back to his hometown, Madras. And that is where Sid and RLR got together. And RLR set the template for what Royal Enfield should be doing. He was helped in a certain way by trying to go and meet a lot of evolved motorcyclists, not the macho guys who took the bike, went to the Himalayas and came back and suddenly said, I'm King Kong. He didn't meet those. He met the evolved. What do you want from a 4-stroke motorcycle? Around that time, they kept, the biggest thing was they experimented quite a lot. They went to AVL, they did something because didn't know first what was emission regulations, and for a 1930s single cylinder engine to be made relevant for 2002 2003 VS2 regulations was a big thing. So
Came
AVL.
out with the UCL.
No, so after that, first the
Unit construction.
that came later. So AVL, so AVL did that lean burn engine. Then they went to Fritz Egli, whom and I'd seen Fritz Egli do his bikes. He did a 535cc single. He did a 645cc single, and those bikes were done very well. But
I remember reading about that in
Yes.
Overdrive. This was
Yes.
before I joined
Yes.
Overdrive, so it must have been
So,
99 or
yeah.
Swiss.
Swiss guy, yeah.
So I'd gone there too, and Fritz Egli was very much in love with Royal Enfield. He had come down to India also, but he was of a performance bent, and Royal Enfield didn't understand performance, how to take out. Two big things about the bike was the lump was very heavy, the suspension geometry was for a different era, the tire sizes were for a completely different era, and plus the frame geometry and whatnot again was archaic. How do you do that? How do you overcome that? So slowly they started, like how Bajaj could not take on Hero Honda, so they said we'll outflank that. So Royal Enfield also with RLR and all that, let's go away from Bullet, keep the Bullet as it is, and have extensions of. So you had the Thunderbird, you had some other variant, the Machismo, God knows what it was.
So, Adil, I started off at Overdrive when the Machismo came out. So that was one of the first bikes that, one of the first bikes.
Penance for you.
For me, it was the best bike you could have because those days, all these 125cc four strokes were just coming. The Yamaha YD125. Who wants to ride a Yamaha YD125 when you have the Machismo? Machismo, it had this. I remember our bike was maroon with lot of chrome on it. And Sachin Chauhan, who that time was at Overdrive, he left and he was at Royal Enfield for the longest time. He was the one who actually did that whole rides community. So he had put a rocket, Rider Mania and all. So he had put a rocket exhaust, that was what it was called at that time, which made a racket like you would not believe. You started in Pune and a glass plane in Dadar would fall down. So it was that loud, but it was so cool. It would give you tons of problems. It was really cool. So I have a lot of memories of the Machismo. But I want to toss to you, Rishad. This was around the same time that you got into motoring journalism. Of course, you were at the garage. So garage mein to you must have had tons of bullets coming. So what was your initial experiences and memories of Royal Enfield?
My initial memories are quite strange actually because I remember joining Autocar and around the same time, and we had a long-term bike which came in, and there was this mad rush and everyone was like fighting for the bike, and I was like, it's all right, this, and one of our good friends.
But did you own it?
No, I really honestly did. And Osif Chako literally captured that bike and made it his own baby. And every 2-3 weeks, Osif would come into the office and he would tell us that, the bike stopped and it's gone to the garage. And then a call would come from the garage. It's seized, And then after another 1-2 months, it would come back. And then again, and this went on. And after about a year, that bike had seized 5 times. And at some point, of course, Royal Enfield phoned and said, look, 1 year's over and, let's get the bike back. And so we all told Osif, the bike needs to go back. And Osif's like, I want to buy the bike. So I said, Osif, why do you want to buy the bike? It's seized 5 times. And, this was like a slow awakening for me because from the garage days where I'd seen them breaking down, and they drip oil like
it was good revenue for you, no?
Yes, and they drip oil like you can't imagine.
Yes, I know.
And then you start understanding that there's something about these bikes, Royal Enfield, which is there's nothing, no other bike manufacturer in the world who has this USP where you know that you're buying a bike which is going to give you trouble. It's going to seize on you. It may break down on you. X, Y, Z.
There is one word to describe it. Character.
But you tell the man that, look, this is your better option. The better bike is cheaper, it's going to go, it's not reliable, no problem. It's a Honda, it's a Yamaha. But they'll go and buy the Royal Enfield. And after some time, you realize that this is something unmatched.
It's a drug. It's a drug.
It's something
Nothing,
that...
no bike.
It's also a factor of the times that we were in. because what other options did you have? The CBZ came later on, and that was of course cool. But with this, you had something that was cool
But
looking,
CBC
that
150cc still never
exactly.
did it,
So you did not have an option to the Royal Enfield. So the Royal Enfield was the coolest at one time. In fact, for the longest time, it was the fastest motorcycle you could buy. When I think they launched I think the lean burn engine, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken,
yes.
when we tested it, it was the fastest motorcycle we had tested at overdrive. A Royal Enfield, which dates back to the 1930s. So if you wanted all of that, it was only the Royal
you
Enfield.
must make a distinction here. Royal Enfield is the brand. The bike which did it was the Bullet. So Royal Enfield's fortunes are with the Bullet. So talk about the Bullet, and that is how.
Which Royal Enfield does not talk about, because
Yeah.
once they
Yes,
rebranded to
absolutely.
Classic, it was like the whole Bullet chapter got over.
They tried to what you call sidestep the Bullet, but it was still the Bullet. The real change happened when they thought that yes, when they saw the success story of Triumph and how a rejuvenated, reinvented Triumph came back on the scene, and they saw that if Triumph could make a success story of this for a British brand, if Harley Davidson with all its agricultural wheat wins could still what you call captivate audiences, why not go down that route? And it was once they thought about it that way, that is when they started saying, okay, let's look at what do we need to do. The Conti GT was a step in that direction.
So before we get to the Conti GT, let's talk
not
about
the 650.
Okay.
We are talking about the 535 single. That was really the big turning point. That was the last manifestation of the Bullet engine, so to speak, at that time. Taken what Fritz Egli had done with his 535, they adopted that same thought process. They got a brand new frame. The frame changed everything. Unfortunately, the engine was on its last legs.
But we should remind our viewers that Royal Enfield had a 350 as well as a 500. It was not just the 350.
Yeah, but 500 came later because the European guys said 350 was too weak with all the emission equipment.
For the longest time, the 500 was only export.
Yes, it
And
was
then
only
they
absolutely,
brought it
yeah.
in after
So
a
they
long
needed, but then India also had what we call woken up. Everyone wanted power. So the 535 Conti GT single was fantastic to look at. Period styling, everything. It really handled well. I think probably if anyone has ridden a BSA Gold Star and found the handling of that single cylinder bike, Royal Enfield finally attained the 1950s Gold Star handling with the 535 Conti in 2012, 2013. So that was the thing. So that from there they started thinking that we need to get away from that engine lump because it was too heavy. The internals were also so heavy when they didn't need to be. Okay, metallurgy in the 30s was different, metallurgy today is different. And that's where they started thinking of a range of power plants. Having bought Harris Performance, and that Conti 535 GT chassis was all about Harris Performance, knowing how to iron out the single cylinder vibes. And the Royal Enfield Bullet had more vibes than anyone could ever dream about. So to have arrested that on with that engine, it was really a big leap forward. Sadly, in India, crouched, sporty sort of thing at that time was too early. People didn't. I still have the 535 with me. It's a wonderful bike. And that's when they started thinking if we can do this sort of agile handling bikes, very stable machines, good under braking, etc., we have a future. And that's when a whole range of engines, and they also decided people matter. Harris Performance got assimilated into Royal Enfield. Then they decided Britain was at the cornerstone of good design and engineering, not manufacturing, good design and engineering. They never wanted to, get into bed with any other manufacturer. Like how Bajaj had done, getting the best experts from all over the world to join them. And that's what Sid went. Sid was.
Let's talk about the steps that Siddharth went through in transforming Royal Enfield. So at the start, okay, forgive my phrase, but it was a basket case. Yeah,
It was literally.
it was like on the verge of being sold off, and this was the project given to Siddharth to turn it around. How did he start? Where did he start? First with RLR, with RL Ravichandran. Then what went into transforming this brand?
The key thing was he also needed finance. So I don't think Royal Enfield will be very happy for me to put this. But the guy who's there right now at Classic Legends was his partner there. He brought the finance there. And both of them, Anupam Thareja, both Anupam is also a very avid motorcyclist. They both were very close friends and they got that thing going. Finance was pumped in, thought was, and a lot of the biggest thing was we have been telling Royal Enfield even before the Aisha takeover to switch the gear shifter from the right to the left. I remember, and you can see it in an issue of Car and Bike International. They had got an order for 500cc bullets for Canada. And in North America, no bikes with right foot gear shifting were allowed. Mandatory is always left foot. We helped at Car and Bike and we helped engineer the change from right to left with a lot of agricultural levers. It was a pain, but it worked. So there was this, like I told you, there's an enemy within Royal Enfield when Siddharth took over. No, we don't want to change, resist. The key thing was they wanted to keep their bullet clientele happy. But they were keeping the whole world away from the bullet.
I remember Adil and me stepped out after dinner and we were sitting outside the hotel because it was a lovely cool night in London. And Siddharth stepped out and three of us were sitting. And at some point we asked him that what is the change that he pushed through? What was his vision? Because there had to be something where in 2000 he was absolutely looking at a company at the bottom end of the barrel and then he picks it up and brings it to where it is. Where, yes, the classic 350 was the one that really came out in 2010 or 2009, whenever it was. But what was that, that one or two things, the key things that he did? And he did say that perhaps the single most important thing was to push through bringing the gear lever to the standard left side from the right side, because he believed that this was the key to making his product, taking it worldwide and taking it to the next level. Because yes, while the Royal Enfield guys were gung-ho on having it the right side and we are Puritan, but he knew that he's blocking out the rest of the whole world, as Adil says very rightly.
No,
from that,
the thing is that no one would buy it because legislation would not allow them to be sold.
And also in terms of mindset, no. In fact,
Absolutely.
maybe we should talk about what a original bullet was like to ride when you compare it with a modern motorcycle.
Probably only Adil would know amongst the three of us.
The early bullets were much simpler and much, because they were not encumbered by any emission gadgetry on that. Clean carburetor open, full throated, single cylinders. No, and you had an exhaust also with no cat converters and whatnot. Bike was lighter also at that time, relatively speaking. And it was easier to ride given the era of it in which it was built.
And that legendary bullet thump. What was that thing all about?
The thump was there. It was a slow firing engine.
Long stroke.
That's
because it was a long.
And the British press used to marvel at the thing that the exhaust note would happen at a certain speed, if you're at 60 kilometers per hour, and the distance of each lamp post. So it would fire from lamp post to lamp post. Thump, thump, thump. So that is how. So, and sound plays oral exhaust audio plays a big role in motorcycling, even in cars and whatnot.
But on the bike, you can feel it. It's that
absolutely
noise plus between your legs is going thump, thump.
No, not just that. It was very melodious thump. It was not like you see rock music, it's noise. I don't think it's music. It's rocks.
Q8 from rock music lovers.
So the thing is that it was melodious as well. Certain things like the early Harleys also had that. They lost that also. So the key thing is to keep that exhaust audio going. It was a very big thing for Royal Enfield to do that. But then as we progressed...
Were the bikes too heavy?
They were... At that time, it was supposed to be
what metallurgy was there, even the Javas and the Rajduts were very much in that mold, Even though they were two strokes, the difference between the two bikes were hardly about 20-25 kilos. But 20-25 kilos is big. And the knack of starting a four-stroke against a two-stroke, very different.
So I wanted to get to that. I even wrote it out here. What was it like to kickstart a Bullet? Could you dislocate your hip?
Yeah, you could. Because at that time, the ignition systems were again you could manually do advanced retard, points. So there was it was a throwback to a different
you
era.
had a decompressor.
It had a decompressor.
You had
Yeah,
to decompress.
You had to
Otherwise,
decompress.
if you didn't,
Yeah,
do
so
that right,
then you would be in
it
outer
kick
space.
back.
So Rishad, let's run through how you kick-started a Bullet with this decompress.
Well, you had to push it down and press the lever at the same time, and the next kick you had to
And you had to leave the
you had to
decompressor.
leave the decompressor and kick it, and it would start.
And you had to
You
be
hope so. Otherwise, you tried again.
No.
But if you didn't decompress it
Yeah.
and you did it, it would give you a kickback somewhere.
And
Very violent.
another thing also, motorcycling in India, so many people would make it as a big task to take the Bullet on and off the stand.
It was not.
It was not.
It was the easiest thing in the world.
It was not. But there was this phobia in mind. Only real men can take it on and off the stand. It's such a bit of hogwash. Like I told you, the women in Europe found the Bullet they were the biggest customers for the Bullets in the early going. So this is how it is.
Those 80s European women. Okay, but
Let's come back to the dinner. The dinner.
Yeah.
And there was that second thing that he told us, which got left out here, was he told Adil and me that he wanted to bring about change, and he found himself up against this wall in Chennai, and he decided that he's going to just take it all to UK and do it there, and that's really paid off, right? You see it today. The products are just mind blowing compared to where they were. There's all kinds of change, and on every front. I think perhaps the only one place I think Royal Enfield needs to focus and could really make a big change to their whole product lineup is every bike needs to be 20 kilos lighter, and we'll have real winners,
So
And on the subject of weight, any bike, really speaking, whatever be the weight, if it is light on the move, then that's okay. There are lots of Honda 750cc Hondas. You take a cafe racer sort of full out bike, you find when you take it off the stand, get across, it is heavy. On the move, look at the Honda CB 750 Hornet. She's so agile. She's like a pulsar, a 750cc lightweight pulsar. So you need to only confront yourself with the weight as long as it's distributed well. And weight distribution is the earlier Bullets, the weight was very much higher, very differently. The geometry was different. You look at the front forks, look at the geometry, you look at the rake. It was all against modern thinking. It was good for its time, but when you had 5-6 decades of progress, it was archaic.
So come down on rim size now.
No, now the Hunter, with the
350,
Hunter.
17 inches for the
Hunter.
So we'll talk about the Hunter. I also want to talk about the UK Tech Center. But before that, let's talk about the man. No, we've talked about Siddharth Lal. Siddharth Lal as a person, how he's transformed the company, that everybody knows. But what's he like as a person? Because we've hung out with car and bike company CEOs, CXOs,
I think the most
head honchos.
amazing thing about him is he's totally hands-on the bikes himself. He will come on. He's one of the only top owners of the company. You won't even put him into that CEO. He's the owner, and he rides with the journalists on the launch. He listens to you.
I must tell you one very important. I think maybe I think it was 2001 or 2002, after the Pulsar had come out and all that, and I was visiting him at his plant in Chennai. And he says, Adil, and it was really that you could make out he wanted change to happen and all that. So it was a freewheeling discussion, just him, me, and I think there was one other person, I don't remember his name. And then I said, Siddharth, how many of your managers ride your own bikes? He says, what do you mean by that? I said, unless and until they don't ride, they will not know what crappy stuff they are putting out.
How to make it.
No, no. So he says, what do you do? I said, one day I said, when is your weekly off? He says, Saturday, Sundays were the weekly off. He said, on one Saturday, don't tell any of your managers, prepare 10, 15 bikes, get helmets, keep it ready. He did that. He says, I'm calling, and we were there. And he called the 12, 15 managers of the different departments and said, we are riding. Half of them could not put the bike off the stand. The other half who did were struggling to fire the bike into life. That is what taught him a big lesson. I think and it sent the word right down to the rank and file of the company. If you don't know your product, you don't ride your product. And I think that hit home very strongly. And motorcycling is such where the more you do, the more you enjoy it. And if you don't do, you will never know what are the dynamics of. It's not about going fast. It is about being one with the bike. And the Royal Enfield character was being one with the bike.
And you don't want to go fast.
You cannot go. You cannot go. It cannot go.
You can go fast.
Yeah,
but they made to you enjoy that.
True.
lazy
So
sort
that's
of
what, like I told you, that thump every flagpole. So this is the thing, and I think that is when the surround around the bike. He said, okay, how do we make it a cult bike? Because Harley was a big thing in front of them. Harley's balance sheet showed 55% of Harley's revenues in the early 2000s came from their apparel and merchandise. And RLR and Sid thought that yes, this is a chance to do. So they started investing in community. They started investing in getting all these roughnecks on bullets who go to Leh.
Adil, don't call me a roughneck, huh?
Well, you
I'm a
just
delicate flower.
so all these guys.
We'll talk about the community because I've made a note of that also. But just coming back to Siddharth, not only was he smart, okay, not only did he have a business and engineering mind, he also was a cool representation of the brand. I remember one of our first awards where we invited him. Obviously, he was not going to win any damn award with those bikes, but he came, and he was game enough to come, even though he was not coming to collect an award. And everybody else were in suits, down to the last person. Everybody on suits, including us bloody
That
journalists,
means
were in
Rajiv
suits.
Bajaj wasn't there at your award.
This was after.
No.
This was after the Pulsar. So this was before the Pulsar. Before the Pulsar came out, and he came with his curly, gelled hair, with his beard, in a leather jacket. I don't know if that time he had a beard, but I remember for a fact that he wore a
No,
leather jacket.
he didn't have a beard, but he
But
was
he wore a
scruffy.
leather. Yeah, he wore a leather jacket. I'm
Scruffy
like,
leather
"Fuck, man,
jacket.
look at this guy.
He had got ample charms around his wrist.
Yeah. And no, we are wearing suits and all of that, looking like idiots. And look at this guy. And that was the whole image. He didn't care about what others were like. He was himself.
Motorcyclists are like that. Actually speaking, motorcyclists are like
but
that.
brave also, no? Adil?
Well, the thing is that what you see is what you get with motorcyclists. And he was coming, we had made Overdrive to be one of enthusiasts. So he knew that he was coming to enthusiasts. So in that sort of sense, plus let's not forget, that was the first time we incepted a Hall of Fame thing, and we gave two Hall of Fame awards, one to Rahul Bajaj who had come and one to the Bullet. So he had come to accept the award. We said, you just come, it'll make your day. He didn't know. We had not told him that. So when he was over the moon at that time.
Yeah, so as a person, he was a brilliant representation of the brand, and he still is. Today, when you go for rides, Siddharth Lal is there.
He's there and he's riding, with you.
And he's riding with you. He's riding at the pace of the best guys in the
I
business.
remember that the Himalayan ride, we went to, it was 2015, went into the Himalayas.
Yeah,
Rode
Shimla.
from Shimla out 1 hour, 2 hours into
And
the
it rained,
mountain.
and it was a horrible
It
weather.
started with the sun out, and we went down the road and it started drizzling, and then it started hail, and then it started snowing, and then we were just riding through this freezing cold, and he was there. He was there running in the top 5, on the top 5 bikes over there.
And journalists, at least the top 5 journalists, top 10 journalists are good riders.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's actually a good
He's
rider,
there, yeah.
a good representation of the brand, red shoes and all of that. And that leads me to
Shirish, if you do
merchandise.
not know how your rear end slides on a bike, you will never know how a bike handles. And is it safe or not? That's fundamental to two wheels. And that is what I always feel. You have to steer a company also, you need to know how
You
it's
need to
going.
listen to your bum
Yeah,
moving around.
yeah, absolutely. It's all the seat of the pants. That's the praise,
So, coming to the merchandise which you're talking about, Royal Enfield started off in a small
No, so
way.
community, they got the community going. When
Yeah,
they
actually, the community came first.
the community, when they saw the community, they suddenly saw all these Royal Enfield guys going and coming with those those flags and whatnot. There has got to be something. It was like religion.
And wasn't it one of your overdrive
Yes, yes.
people who really
Yes,
started it?
yes.
It was Rider Mania.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
So Sachin Chavan,
Who didn't bring the bike back from the mountains?
Yes,
He's
true.
one of
he
them.
didn't bring it back.
I must tell you one thing about that. And again,
What do you
this is,
think he didn't bring?
yeah, it broke down there.
Oh.
And since you know about that, so let's not get there. But Sachin Chavan had made him for himself a leather overcoat. That leather overcoat weighed more than the bike, I think. So that is when I think probably Sachin understood when he joined Royal Enfield to look after the rides part of it at that time, and then slowly develop the community. So what happened from there? What is the essentials to going to Leh? You need a warm and a comfortable jacket. Slowly, these
Waterproof gloves.
waterproof. So slowly,
Bikes they don't break down.
all these things develop parallelly. And I've always seen one thing. No way can you give your apparel and your rights thing to the marketing department of a company. They say this, अरे हमने इतना पैसा किया और हमारा बाइक इतने numbers नहीं बिके. We don't want that. No, it has to run in. Marketing guys have to do their job. Rides and apparel is not the marketing guy's job. Rides and apparel as a merchandising team's job, they should do. And Royal Enfield is the only company to date in India which has adopted that and stood steadfast with that. And that's what's paying them dividends. If other companies are crying, they are to be blamed, not Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield showed everyone the way.
And their gear is very good.
And today the gear is outstanding.
So I took my
tie-ups with Revit
I took my Harley to the mountains. I was riding a Harley, a Pan America, and I was head to toe in, apart from my Arai, I was head to toe in Royal Enfield gear with their Alpine styles, that Gravity dry style. So it was probably
I wouldn't be
TCX boot.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Harley sourced from Royal Enfield suppliers. From now
But
on.
very good quality, very
Yes.
well priced, and the other stuff, the t-shirts and all of that, excellent stuff, like really cool stuff.
Again, it is just like how we have our ethos here. We started with Overdrive, we had t-shirts, but we have got with Evo,
Yeah.
different. You have to keep the flavor of the moment going. You cannot be static with that. So you look at their range, like how fashion, we had a fall collection, we have a winter collection. Harley is taking that fashion ethos and making it very compatible to riders. And India is biking country, at least for 9 months in a year, if not more. So we need to, and they have got it all sussed out. And trust me, across over there, for anyone else, I say Royal Enfield on one side and the rest of the industry on the other side, as far as community and apparel is concerned.
I think one of their big business
Divisions.
points is they've got it. They've got a focus which is very clear. They don't want to sell volumes. They want to
Exclusivity.
exclusivity and a certain price range of bike where they get a
No, so again, like I said, when Pulsar started going all over the world, Royal Enfield followed Pulsar everywhere else in the world. They said wherever, and Sidlal himself admitted, he says wherever the Pulsar goes, we follow. So,
But not to Africa and all that.
no, South America,
South America, yeah.
Southeast Asia. So wherever they are, South America is where they really made a big splash. And so much so that today they have displaced Honda in the reckoning. And to displace Honda in the reckoning in that, and shall I tell you the best imitation is the best form of flattery. The Japanese have never invented everything. They only adopted and refined it and more.
but the refined.
Yeah, no, just a bit. So whatever I say today, there's a CB 350 and a CB 400 in Japan brought across because they made the highness or whatever there thanks to that. So what I'm saying is, guys, Indian manufacturers have to be applauded. Don't look down on
100%.
don't look down on them at all.
100%.
So we talked about Siddharth Lal, we talked about merchandise. Have you ever been to a Rider Mania? What was your experience like?
Yeah, I remember this. This is going way back. I think 2003 or 4, one of the first ones. And I got this call from my friend Sachin Chavan, and he said, "Come on, Rishad, we want you on the ride." And I said, "Yeah, but what do I ride?" You know, so he said, "Don't worry, I get a bike specially for you from Chennai and all." Then the bike came, and I took one of our colleagues just now, Behram Godrej, and we went on this ride, and we started from Pune near the university.
Two up, huh?
Two up,
And going to Bombay
It was at Panvel.
at Panvel.
And we started from this place near university, and Behram and me, and we were having a great time. We went down the ghats, and we were right in front of everyone. And
There will
we
be about
were
another
enjoying
100
it.
bikes or something behind
Yeah,
you.
they were all behind. We were number one.
Yeah.
And we were having a blast. You know? And then suddenly,
Yeah.
we reached down and around Khopoli, pop! And that was it. And the bike just
Stopped.
So I coasted to the side and said, "Now this is going to be real embarrassing. Like everyone's coming, like, 5 minutes behind." So I told Behram, "Look, Behram, just wait a minute. Don't do anything. Don't look at the bike. Put it on the stand." And I got out the camera and I said, "We're taking photos." So everyone said, "Hey, look." They were coming to stop. I said, "No, go. We're just taking photos." We let everyone go. And then I said, "Okay, now let's look at the bike." And I looked, and the carburetor had
Come out from the
just
bellows.
come out from the manifold and was hanging. Now they put it back in. And it started.
So there's a lesson for everyone out there. If you see a Royal Enfield stopped and someone taking photographs, you know what has happened.
But I should tell you that on a Royal Enfield, if you stop on the road, you won't have to wait for more than 10 minutes until somebody will come and help you out.
Yes.
Most often,
That's
it
the
is the
brotherhood.
mechanic itself.
That is the brotherhood, the biker brotherhood, where Royal Enfield excels in that.
And they will help you out. So and another thing is that a Royal Enfield,
Very easy to
sort out.
anyone
Yeah.
can sort out the issues.
So there was a time when Royal Enfield talked about having the world's highest service station. But that was not because, it was some marketing speak. It was they needed it. Because everybody who went to the Himalayas went on a bullet. And a bullet would break down. So you had to get it sorted out somewhere. So that's why they had the world's highest, at least the bike
And that's
service
all
station.
changing now. Though.
What I'm saying is that, see, this is what adds to the lure and the legend of the machine. And we are talking bullet again. Huh?
Yeah. And the mountains have been Royal Enfield's
Territory.
Kabza,
Yeah.
no? It's
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
own territory. You wouldn't look at a classic or something and think that this is a bike that you take to the mountains, especially now with the ADVs being booming. But that bike was so well suited to the mountains. Everybody cut their teeth in the mountains on the classic, on earlier Royal Enfields. Even now when you go, it's all these Royal Enfields that are there for rent. That you go and ride up to Khardogala.
But I
or
must
ride
tell you
up to
something
Rohtang.
across over there. This is the thing about the macho stuff which I spoke about. Because we went to lay on Luna 50s as well. And we went on the kinetic Honda as well. And everyone thought us to be idiots, which we were. Others would not have done it. So you need to be a little wacky in the mind. But then everyone who goes, I think the bullet lent itself well to go across over there.
One of the biggest things for that pull was many riders used to say that, look, there's only this one bike which two hefty guys also, and the bike still remains composed and handles.
And could carry luggage.
And
could
with
carry
the
luggage.
luggage
Carry
on.
luggage.
Otherwise, the rest would all start bouncing around, bottoming, and
Yeah, but
let's-
two of y'all could not sit on a Luna and go up to.
No, we were all single.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We were all single. We must have what you call repaired the Luna engines 5 times from Pune to Leh and back because it would seize. And we were foolhardy here. We just wanted to do it. Simple as that.
I wish those days we had video because this kind of stuff here, Lunas in the Himalayas,
true.
those days, want video to be. Anyway, so lots of stories, we'll come to that. But the Himalayas led to the Himalayan.
Okay, the key thing for Royal Enfield was how do you make yourself relevant in a changing atmosphere, and what do you need to do to make yourself really focused on a bike which will do well not just in India but globally. I remember there was a talk within Royal Enfield, should we make a V-twin or should we make a parallel twin? And in this, I think a lot of work happened with one previous motorcycle racer, Subhash Chandra Bose, who was the Bullet King. And
Beautiful white flowing beard.
Yes, now he is. So Subhash and his friend Prashant, PK Prashant, who unfortunately no more, very good diehard motorcyclist. He had a Yamaha XS 650, and they had taken the bike to Chennai and they had shown, and a lot of work went. A pattern had also been made from there. But again, engineering was the weak point of Royal Enfield. Then they decided, yes, a V-twin is not in the Royal Enfield ethos, even though Royal Enfield did make a 1000cc V-twin in the 1920s. They had that in their portfolio. But 1920s and now it. So parallel twin, British, that is what really gets strong in the subconscious. So they decided on a 650, they decided on a twin cylinder parallel twin, which could be made in 650 to about 800cc. So we have not seen the end of the thing. So there is quite a lot there. And once they assembled this core team of experts from all around the world,
And this we are going to the UK Tech Center.
yeah, the UK Tech.
Assembled out
So the UK Tech Center had to be there first for them to have this. Harris Performance got them going there. They saw the benefits of that. One of the greatest things, if you see, in the ignition system of all these bikes, the wizards who have come from Japan. They have come from Yamaha, and they are on full time. So everyone who works in the tech center are fully full Royal Enfield employees. They are no consultants.
Yeah. And it's like the United Nations over there. I've been there.
Yeah,
and you have the
absolutely,
Japanese, you have the Italians, you have the
Yeah.
Germans, you have the Brits, you have Indians.
So what happens is that they got this best of all worlds, but still they had to get the menu right, the mix right. It had to taste right. It had to
And at the right price.
Yeah.
Main thing.
The key thing. So this is what is very important, Rishad. What you said is so important because you can do everything and then you can get greedy.
And that's it.
Royal Enfield did, but again, if you see the 650, unlike so many other bikes in that same capacity class, the way the electronics are configured are simpler than anything else.
No, basically
Yeah.
no electronic.
No,
aids.
not just that. They also thought which are the bikes which have been customized the most in the world, Harley Davidson and Bullets.
Yes.
Okay, they didn't want to lose that character. Taking the electronics away to a great extent, there's no CAN bus systems, they're just plug and play. All these things were very symptomatic of where the Royal Enfield character emerged from or was always there.
And who is the custodian for that? Who calls the shots there on this front?
I think it's there's Paolo, who's the engineering chief. There's Mark Wells. There's Sid himself. So there are these 3-4 guys, and they're all of them are motorcyclists here. Not just hands on their motorcycles. They ride the bikes in and out. And so when they looked at that thing, they said we have to develop it on those terms. There's no exotic stuff as such. It's simplicity personified.
If you look at the bike, the 650, the Interceptor
Yeah.
650, not look at it, ride
Ride it,
and
ride it.
the spec levels and everything. It's basically the Triumph
True.
Bonneville for
the
half
masses.
the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's,
absolutely.
it's almost as good,
What I'm-
except
no,
for
no.
the electronics and a little
No, not except what pleasure it gives you at half the price is double what you can get from the Triumph. Yeah, so let us look at it
So
that way.
there's that many more buyers.
Yeah.
there.
No, but what I'm saying is, it has opened a new universe for Royal Enfield. It had to happen. So once you taste blood, and let me tell you, we have got 2 650s now from Royal Enfield. I think there are plans to have at least 4 different variations which will be spawned on that. So exactly, you look at the classic Triumph Bonneville range, where it's gone through. It doesn't require rocket science or genius to understand where this thing will also go.
So with the Interceptor 650, we've jumped ahead a couple of years. So let's jump back. You have the UK Tech Center, which is in Bruntingthorpe, which is in the heart of UK's, the Midlands, where you have all that
The
engineering.
automotive
resource.
engineering.
That was the first bike to come out of there, was actually the Himalayan.
No, not necessarily. No,
Continental GT.
no. Continental GT was the
So the Conti GT was the first.
Yes.
After that, the Himalayan.
Himalayan.
yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Himalayan. Royal Enfield's first proper ADV motorcycle. Though every motorcycle was actually ridden like ADVs, this was the first proper ADV motorcycle.
They understood that people were going to the mountains.
They need a bike for the mountains.
They needed a bike for the mountain.
But the Himalayan at the start wasn't proper.
Well, what I'm saying is it was
It was a good start.
No, what I'm saying, even Triumph didn't make a Himalayan like that. So these guys had to go through that trial and error route. Also, very differently, road biased machines, which what the 650s were. The people, and if you see most British bikes, even in their heydays in the 50s and 60s, the off-road bikes were basically the on-road bikes with mudguards removed, high travel suspension, and raised handlebar. That was all the concession given to off-road riding, and which is what the Bullets did to go to Leh and Ladakh as well. So it took some time for even Siddharth Lal to adjust his riding style to the Himalayan.
But I'll
and
say
whatnot.
one thing in the favor of the Himalayan. All told, yes, the engine could have been quicker, more power. It could have been lighter. That was the biggest thing for me.
Yes.
But the chassis was very sweet. The bike, even off-road, I remember I was riding an Impulse, which I took off-road quite a few times at the same time around when it launched, and the Impulse was brilliant.
Oh, yes.
It was just amazing off-road. But above 60, 70, it was...
It hit a wall. It hit a wall.
Whereas the Himalayan was very stable. The chassis...
That's right. But it had to be. It had to be there. So whatever the right attributes are there for adventure bike, you need to have solid planted feel without it getting skittish, But they were beset more by quality problems than by design issues. The design was perfect. The build put together quality was a little iffy. We had frames breaking off at the stem, but those were issues there. But they have recovered from there massively. And if you look at the way they listen, I would love to have an upright bike in our traffic situation.
It's the best.
The Scram was perfect in that respect, and is perfect in that respect.
Yeah.
So we got to look forward to the bigger one now.
So the
next
450,
Himalayan.
the 450 Himalayan is
That's gonna be the
coming.
bike.
Siddharth Lal put it on his Instagram, then everybody
I
else put it
have
everywhere else.
I have something in my mind which I don't know how far it's confirmed or not, but there is a strong feeling that Enfield has the Dakar in its sights.
No way.
Yes.
Really? Yeah?
Yes. So
Okay, you heard it here first.
you heard. So yes. Well, how will they do it? I don't know. But it's a great thought to have that as a target, and you try to make a bike which eventually could go there.
Whoa.
Which is very important. The thought is very important. It starts with that.
Unbelievable.
I'm sure they'll do it.
Yeah.
And they should.
Touch wood. Hopefully it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It'll be
another, to digress a little bit. We don't, people don't talk about how much KTM being an Indian
Part Indian owned. Yeah.
owned company.
Yeah.
So much motorsports and it's India. So
Yeah.
why can't if
In India,
why can't Royal Enfield do it?
no, just a minute. KTM has different. They are selling whatever they want. KTM has become a commodity. With the commodity, if they still had kept motorsport, bike sport as its focus strongly in India, it would have been a different. They didn't. They are selling very well. They are happy about that. So that is their way of looking. Royal Enfield is a challenger brand. It is the thing where they have to go on different avenues. I'm rooting for them, come what may, make a bike to go to the...
Okay, challenger in motorsport. But in terms of numbers, everybody wants Royal Enfield numbers. Everybody wants Aisha's share price.
Just, it's very important.
Numbers and profit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing is, the Dominar came in and they said, let's hit the lumbering elephant.
Yeah.
Okay. What has happened to the Dominar? It was a wrong example to picture. The Dominar, a great bike.
It's a wonderful bike.
It's a great bike.
Fantastic bike.
Very differently and stupidly positioned. I think that, look at what is happening. Triumph is wanting to get into Royal Enfield Turf 350. Honda, Highness. I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard Norton also wanting to do the same thing. BMW has done almost the same. So the catalyst is
the 350 classic sort of bike, which Royal Enfield epitomizes to this day. And everyone now, whether you like it or not, is the Raj in reverse, and the Indians have done what they are doing for motorcycling.
Yeah, so we've missed talking on the Interceptor 650, so we just quickly talk about it. That's a global motorcycle. It's not just for India. Obviously done in the UK as well as in India. Styled really well, simple like you spoke about, and fantastically turned out. I don't think
Great
anybody
performance
expected
also.
it to be so good. Yeah,
Super
It-
performance.
and for that price,
Powerful.
excellent.
It's powerful, it's fun, it's reliable. Most doesn't spew oil.
Sounds
And it does
The-
a
the-
genuine 100 miles an hour.
Not just that, look at the transmission, the gears click into place perfectly. The joy of the controls, the tactility over there. It has taken Royal Enfield 1 century ahead, you know.
Yeah.
I think the styling also, it's a very natural evolve
Natural.
for
No,
them.
yeah,
Coming from the
absolutely.
classic 350.
It's
You know, where do we go from here?
It's a very feel good thing.
You want to make a new bike, but
But
it's
let
got to
me-
look something
But let me tell you one
different.
more thing.
But this one fits in.
Again,
perfectly.
in this, what you said this, Royal Enfield has not shied away from doing outlandish tanks and graphics and whatnot. You look at their anniversary versions which they made.
Even the colors.
That's what I said, colors and the Look at that anniversary version they made. That black thing with the golden accents and whatnot. Stunning machine. You have to play with all these accents and whatnot. Look at the thing on the Scram. Look at the thing on the Hunter. Look at the graphics across over there. I think they have sussed this out really well.
And that gave them the confidence to do the J series platform. And the
I just want to tell you this one more thing. Okay, let's talk J series first. Then I'll get to this
Okay.
because it has a relevance across the board.
Yep. So the J series replacement to their old
Bullet.
existing motorcycles, and also sweetly engineered, refined, and that was the bike that the Highness that we're talking about wants to take on. Except most places when we did comparison tests, the Meteor was the nicer motorcycle.
Right.
Sure.
We recommended
Sure,
a Royal
absolutely.
Enfield over a Honda,
Right.
which you would not think it would be possible, right? Except for the emotions, you would not think that you would recommend a Royal Enfield over a Honda.
Highness came across as a wannabe.
No,
Because
not
you
just
got
that.
the CB
You're
styling.
absolutely right.
It's a street bike.
Absolutely
It
right.
should have had a short stroke engine where you got that vroom, you know. Instead, you got this bike
You
which
know,
is a street
Honda,
bike, but
but
it's
Honda has its track record. If you see, they have copied other manufacturers do well. They had the VTR 1000 V-twin Firerock, which copied the Ducati. I had that VTR Firerock with me for many years. So they've always, but they've never kept faith with it because then it didn't. Why buy a Ducati made by Honda when you can buy a Ducati itself? Same way like this, why buy a Royal Enfield made by Honda when you can buy a Royal, and Royal Enfields can hold their own, which Honda forgot in this instance.
Now, the bread and butter for Royal Enfield has always been the Classic 350. That's the one that brings them the volumes, the money, everything. They also upgraded the Classic 350 with the J series platform. What do you think of the?
Shall I tell you one thing? It's not just what they did was an all-new bike. It looks like the old. It has those inspired features from the original Bullets, but in every aspect, chassis, the engine mounting, the suspension, the ride. Just see the riding position on that bike.
Perfect.
It is superb.
Perfect.
Superb. I'm not a Meteor type of rider, but the classic 350, outstanding. Outstanding. And I think when you look at that, what happens is it feels so natural coming from anyone else, and you are safe, sound, and you are reveling in it, you know.
It's simple motorcycling.
Simplicity is at the
the
essence of it
core.
all.
And that has now evolved into the Hunter 350, which is what
No,
we
it's
started off with.
not evolved. It's an extension of that platform.
Extended
It's
into
not
the Hunter.
evolved
Okay.
because both will. There are now 3 different menu options on the 350 platform for Royal Enfield customers. So the Meteor is for the Ladakhi guys who want to go and tie their flags and whatnot. The classic 350 is for idiots like me who really love it to bits. The Hunter 350 is also there for my son also would like to thrash it around. We did it, we rode in Bangkok. One of the key elements, it's about 10 kilos lighter than the classic 350. How does 10 kilos?
they just got 3 kilos only from the tires themselves, tires and wheels.
I think this would be the bike that brings Royal Enfield to the cities.
Yes, it
makes
is.
it makes it perfect for a city.
It is an urban tool, you
And-
know, and the way she handles the bikes, all the media ride bikes were on Seat tires. They were outstanding. And I was talking with one of the other journalists. I said, how will she handle if we put Metzeler's or Pirelli's on? The thing will just go to a different level. But the Seats themselves were outstanding. And it was drizzling in Bangkok at that night when we went through the tight streets and whatnot. It's a bag of fun. And really, the crispness of the power delivery, the feeling on the saddle, the right position where foot brakes, seat, handlebars, the view ahead, the very small minor
Even
style
quality
touches. Absolutely.
and attention to detail.
So now
your
I'm coming.
switches,
Yeah, I'm
your
now coming to
levers.
the-
The
you are
levers
right.
are no more those thin
No,
ones.
no,
you know,
no,
they got
no,
that
no.
little fatness in the profile,
What I'm
which
saying,
gives you a different feel.
when we
you know,
I said
tactile
I'll come
feel.
to that one other thing where we talk about apparel and but look at their accessory list. There is another department now. They had a full range of accessories for the Hunter, and when you look at that on the Hunter, there are two different models with two different. Just to give one idea of what is there, one Hunter has got different sorts of rear view mirrors, which are the traditional ones. One has the bar end mirrors, and then they had the accessory mirrors. That's a work of art. You got to see the engineering behind that. So what I'm saying, if they have gone to that level, and there are so many other things around the bike, I think why should a company not succeed?
Okay, so we have to end this. I think this has gone well over an hour also, but it's been interesting, Adil and Rishad. Let's end with what is the future for Royal Enfield? Let's start with you, Rishad.
And I would hope to see Royal Enfield making
Don't say lighter.
the same bikes, but
Lighter.
the same bikes, but a bit lighter. Yes, and yes, I'm really looking forward to the bigger ADV from them.
The 450.
I really got. I've seen the photos, look fabulous. Love to see that bike soon.
Adil, future.
Future, Royal Enfield has got its career growth path already sussed out. They know what they're going to do. There are going to be more versions on the 650, on the classic 350 platform, on the new Himalayan, and those areas have all been, it's already work in progress. They know what they're going to do. For me personally, I would like to see for more involvement of the consumer in India. They need to tighten up their service and sales. I go into a Royal Enfield dealership to buy a helmet. That guy says, I don't sell helmets on credit cards in the morning because the owner has kept the credit card machine inside. You cannot, this is not representative of a modern day age manufacturer who sells great machines, and you cover up the ownership and the buying experience has also got to what you call. So that is one area.
I said this was the last question, but I have to end with Royal Enfield has to do electrics. The whole world.
I don't
has to do
like electrics. I don't like that shocker.
I love
But-
electrics.
But they have to do electrics. There is no
Yes.
getting away from it.
But they are working
in
on
the,
it.
in the electric future, how does Royal Enfield differentiate themselves from the other brands?
First and foremost, I've got to accept electrics first before differentiation comes in from anyone across over there.
I think
Right
you'll be riding electrics whether you like it or not.
No, I will not.
Yeah,
I'll
will
still
have-
be with my motorcycle, petrol engine motorcycle.
But electrics are going to be there. So if you had to, now you're pushed against the wall, you have to do an electric. What will you do?
I'll buy roller skates.
I think it's going to be a challenge for Royal Enfield because they'll have to make an electric which has a very good range.
But
Because
that is
people look at a
fundamental.
Royal
That- it's
Enfield
yeah,
for,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
a long
But that's
touring
fundamental to
bike.
the electric bike. Anyone across over there. But they are working. Sid did mention that there's a
Would it
separate
be
program.
an existential threat to Royal Enfield?
I don't think so. I think technology is evolving so fast. Very soon that will all be.
The good
No, for them to differentiate themselves.
There's always ideas,
now,
no?
no, but
I mean,
right now,
you could do even a scooter. Royal
Yeah, no,
Enfield,
but-
why not? No.
yeah, but you know one thing, every manufacturer is going to start from ground zero with electrics.
Right.
So how will
Right.
a,
So there's
so
how
if-
different is it?
How
Right.
different can a Honda be from its own petrol engine? So in that sort of sense,
I'm not trying to what you call find the answer. I would like to know the answer.
Right.
That is how it should be.
So, what do you guys think the electric Royal Enfield should be like? Should it be a cafe racer? Should it be a scooter? Should Royal Enfield do another brand name? So, should the Vincent Black Shadow be their first electric
No.
motorcycle?
No.
What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this edition of the Thrill of Driving, which is now the Evo India podcast, let us know in the comments. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video with enthusiasts. And let us know what you want to hear from Adil as well as Rishad on the next episode. We are going to now mix this up with bikes as well as cars. So we'll have a lot more of Rishad, the rest of the team, Atish, Karan, they'll also be handling this podcast. So let us know what you guys want to hear about on the next podcast. Adil, thank you very much. Happy 45th anniversary of being Indian automotive journalist. Thank you for inspiring the rest of us. We all looked up to you. We all learned from you. Rishad, that is Autocar Days, was competing with you. I learned from you back in our
You know
overtake
what? He
days.
came to ask for a job. We didn't have an opening. That's why he went there.
Rishad. Thank God you didn't hire him. Come on. But it's been brilliant talking to
It's always a
the two of you.
learning
Yes.
to be with.
It's 6 o'clock in the evening. We started off at 4 o'clock. Obviously, there'll be some edits on this thing, and we didn't know where the time went. And I hope the same for you guys. Let us know if this is too long. If we should do the next ones a little shorter, we would love to hear from you guys. We love your comments, and obviously, we'll try and make this more regular. So, Adil, thank you very much. Rishad,
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
being
Sirish.
on the podcast. Thank you, Adil.
This is
And
known as the thump. And we'll be thumping you with a lot of great stuff.
thank you guys for watching and listening to us.